Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. My name is Heather, and who are you fellas?
Howdy, Heather. It's me, Jamie.
That's a big sigh.
I know, Jamie's tired.
A lot going on.
There's
said that.
so much going on.
I'm here too, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
It's a rainy
Yeah.
I know.
morning.
Yep.
Feels like Cleveland.
Feels like upstate New York. It's always gloomy there.
Big day. Big day today, guys.
This is a real exciting start
Man.
to this podcast.
Sorry.
We're real.
Everyone else is going to be feeling the same way.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're here to liven them up,
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I think.
Eventually.
Yeah,
part of our
eventually we will.
What did you do this weekend, guys?
Well, let me think. Friday night was Night of Impact,
Yes.
and that was good. We can talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
Saturday, I went to a funeral in the morning.
Okay.
And it was someone who was a charter member of Believers Church.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it was actually, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm being disrespectful. It was actually kind of fun because there were just a ton of people from old Believers days that
No,
I
I
was
don't think that's
able
being
to
disrespectful.
run into,
Yeah.
including just one of the sweetest ladies who was part of the Gleaners class when I first
remember
got
the
here.
Gleaners.
And she's 90. I don't know. I don't remember if she's 93 or 97, but she's on up there. And I got a chance to talk to her, and it was just so great. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
loved
so
it.
cool.
Lindsay Petit presided over the service, and he pastored Believers back
Yeah.
in the day. And yeah, it was super fun.
I would have loved that because I love being around old people.
Yeah, there were
like-
quite a few old people.
One of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did all weekend.
I know you were just telling us.
Yeah.
Where were you hanging out
Well,
this
I was in
weekend?
Florida, so my wife's grandmother passed away.
Yeah.
Doris May Fitzwater, age of 93, I think she was. So she lived an amazing life. But it was interesting though, because you said fun at funerals. Well, it's not like you're not
I often
going
do
to
have fun at funerals.
Yeah, that's true.
Inappropriately.
Sometimes we get the giggles. It was interesting because we've all been to a lot of funerals. Just
Yes.
our job sometimes, just puts us in those places, and
Yep.
sometimes it's like very quiet, and it's
Right. A somber event.
This one was not. When everybody started rolling in, it was
Oh,
like it
that's
was just
fun.
conversations all over the room, and people got quiet when they needed
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
But it was just really cool.
Yeah.
I think also that speaks to the person sometimes
Yeah.
of what kind of life they
Uh-huh.
led. But yeah, we were just close to the Villages in Orlando, so that's a different world down there. A little bit older, but,
Yeah.
but there's
yeah.
some benefits and there's some not benefits. Driving, not a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clean stores, benefit.
Yeah. So I've been watching this series on Netflix now called Live to 100,
Okay.
and it is so interesting.
I don't think I want to live to 100.
No, if you live like these people
Yeah.
to
Is
100,
that like
you
the
for
Med-
sure want to.
The
really?
Mediterranean people, like I've heard that they live longer than anybody in the world.
I think I haven't gotten that far yet
Oh, okay.
because he goes to 6 different locations.
Yeah.
So far he's been to a place in Okinawa, he's been to a place in Italy, and then a place in the United States. And I'm not
Really?
sure where the other.
Where in the United
We are.
States was it?
The Villages.
I feel no. I feel like
they're
it's
Never mind.
someone's gonna correct me. I feel like it's in Utah somewhere.
Man, that probably checks out. That or Arizona, I would think.
But yeah, it's like, and so the show is kind of doing a research, like a study on what is it about these places and
Yeah.
the habits of the people that allow them to live to 100.
Like
And it's so-
vibrantly to 100?
Yes.
Yeah, like they're like
It
they
is
look like
so
they're 70,
great.
but they're 100.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if
It's
I've seen that
awesome.
show, but I've watched something or read something on the people in like Mediterranean
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah,
that-
it's been
their
really
diet and all that
interesting.
stuff.
So,
That's
yeah.
that's why I try to have mezzo once a week. Just gonna live to 100 then. That's all you gotta do.
Wow, really? That they should incorporate that into
That's
their
it.
advertising
That's
campaign.
all you gotta do.
Yeah.
Jamie,
So easy.
I love that you're like, I don't want to live that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really don't want to live that.
I
long.
think I agree.
Jamie does have a plan for when he does get to a certain.
Oh yeah, I've got it all laid out. I'm
Yeah.
not going to go into it here.
No.
Yeah, but I think you're thinking like how you feel right now in your body. You're like 45 more years of this. This is gonna be brutal. Imagine 45 years from now and how
if you
you
felt
feel.
the way you do right now.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
You're barely sleeping. You think that's gonna just be? That's gonna get better?
Oh man, now I'm kind of depressed.
Yeah.
You were depressed before we started this.
This really is picking up.
Oh man.
Sam's
my
comment
goodness.
about your age has nothing to do with your mood at the moment.
No. Anyways,
Sam is like, you really ought to.
why wait till 90?
Right, just move along.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Wow.
You want to sleep forever? No way.
Anybody else talk to their
Oh
boss
my
like
gosh.
this?
Yeah,
Or
right?
just Sam?
Wow.
No, we don't lose yet, Jamie. Anyways, so on my trip, a couple different stories.
Back to me.
Yeah, I thought we were sharing our weekends. Did you do anything else other than the
No,
funeral?
no, let's
okay,
go.
good. We'll move on. I flew Spirit Airlines,
Yeah.
and I was telling Jamie this morning, actually wasn't that bad.
Oh, good.
It was pretty decent. I will say, if you got to fly more than probably 2 or 3 hours, those seats are not comfortable at all.
Okay.
They're
Well, it's like being
folding
on a
chairs.
bus, isn't it?
Yes, but in
Yeah.
the air. But it was really good. Like we had a great time, except for you have to pay for it's
All
a
the
la carte.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was telling Jamie, we spent I think it was like $70 or $80 for a carry-on. But the ticket was super cheap, so I was like, we'll just do that, fine. So we do that, and we get down there, and we're checking in for the flight home, and Jamie, my wife, goes, all right, I got to pay $80 again. It's both. I thought it was one time, but it's not. So we left our carry-on. I went to Walmart and bought a $10 book bag and just packed everything in it, and that was free. So that was the only thing about Spirit. You can...
How much was your carry-on before you?
Oh, it's Mason's old thing. I don't know.
Oh,
That'd be,
okay.
We've had it for a long time. As
All
far
right.
as time goes, we've gotten our worth out of it. So we just left it. It was awesome. We've done much worse in Florida. We left the whole car there one time and flew home. We sold it at CarMax because it had no AC. We've made a lot of dumb choices in our lives.
Is that when you were like 20?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. We drove by that CarMax. I was like, babe, you remember that? Just drove it right
Oh
up there. I
my
was like,
gosh.
can we sell this? We want to fly home.
Oh
it was
my
awesome.
gosh.
I have a food recommendation.
Okay, great.
In Florida?
No, this is
This
not.
is worldwide.
This is worldwide. Yeah, you can get this anywhere. Actually, it is from.
I didn't
where's
know
my
I'd need
camera?
tissues for the
Dunkin' Donuts.
That's your recommendation?
Listen, we go in there in Florida, but this is everywhere. You can get this anywhere. They're making mini bagel bites right now.
Yeah,
The cream cheese is inside,
Yeah.
I know.
and it's just this little roll.
Starbucks had those for a while.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, they are incredible.
this is so disappointing.
No, because if
No,
you just like
you.
this is for the working people,
Yeah.
just
I-
blue collar.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna talk about your renewed love of the Olive Garden.
Oh, we had all the what is considered maybe where the older generations hang out. We had Cracker Barrel and we had Olive Garden this week.
I mean, Cracker Barrel has a good breakfast.
Yeah, people still love it. I didn't love it as much.
What did you get?
A lot of fried things. I got the chicken fingers. I know it's very kids or
Yeah,
but I just wasn't that hungry.
I don't like the kids' food at Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Shocking.
I had a really big lunch that day, and I just did not want to eat, but I had to eat to be nice. So, well, I didn't want to just sit there and stare at everybody not eat. So I got mac and cheese.
I mean, you
Chicken
could have gotten.
I mean,
could have gotten
the
a
people
salad.
that you were
Yeah, I
with
should've.
didn't make the food.
No, that's true. But anyways, that was
Okay,
fine.
you
But
didn't
the
love it.
Olive Garden was delicious. The soup and salad, all you can eat, is amazing. Chicken and
Gnocchi.
ganoush. Yes.
No, gnocchi.
Baba ganoush.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. Well, you go
Should
to
I not
Mesa.
say it?
No, you can say it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Mesa.
Yes, it
What's
has
that?
it there. It's at Mesa, Baba Ganoush is a Mediterranean dip.
Oh, I thought you were saying mezza.
Well,
Potato, I guess.
I guess.
Okay. But anyways, all those 3 recommendations,
Olive Garden, Dunkin' Donuts, Cracker Barrel.
yeah, almost in that order. Flip-flop Dunkin' because
Yeah.
the bagel cream cheese it's incredible and it's not messy.
Yeah.
So we really enjoyed that.
Yeah. We know how Sam doesn't like to be messy. Remember when he wouldn't eat chicken wings?
Yeah.
Well, I had a suit on.
No,
You had a tie on.
you
Yes,
went
true.
through a
I don't
long
own a suit, actually.
you went through a long period of not wanting to eat wings, period, because of how messy they were.
That's true.
So you got chicken nuggets.
Which people call them that, yeah.
Yeah.
But it had sauce on it.
Jamie still insists that it's chicken nuggets
It is a chicken nugget.
or strip, chicken strip.
But
chicken
Kroger,
strip,
but
or
I
chicken
am
finger.
back to, I like
But they're
the
not
wings.
a chicken wing.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
I like drums are obviously my favorite now, and you can go to Kroger Marketplace
Drums
for
are your
lunch.
favorite?
Yeah, compared
Wow,
to
what about
compared to
you?
wings, or what do you call
Do you
them?
love a flat?
Flat, yeah.
Flats or drums?
I like both.
No.
Oh gosh,
we're
I'm
drums.
a flats person.
We talked
Jeremy,
about this.
weigh in on this.
He's drums. Yeah,
Okay.
What?
they're
This is
cleaner.
shocking.
There's more meat on them,
There is. I like both though.
and they're just fun to eat.
So interesting.
Anyways, Kroger
right.
$7 lunches.
Oh, I saw y'all walking out of Kroger last
mac
week.
and cheese, mashed potatoes. You just need a nap afterwards.
So
Yeah.
that's fine. You have no problem with that food, but you're dogging on Cracker Barrel?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Hot take.
All right.
Hot take
That's
over
my
here.
opinion.
Jamie, anything you want to share about Night of Impact?
It was super fun.
It was super fun.
Yeah, it was a great night. We brought in a guest speaker. His name was Sammer. Mm-hmm. He's like you, but he's more than you. He's Sammer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he introduced himself, I asked him how to pronounce his name
And he
because I
did?
thought it was Samir.
I did too.
But he
It's
said
Sammer.
it's Sammer like hammer.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's
like
actually a
Sam,
cool
but
name.
Sammer than Sam.
Well, every
Yeah.
time he would email us, I was like, why am I email? And then it's like, oh, it's Samir.
Yeah.
What I thought.
Yeah.
Sammer.
He did a great job, and I just thought his talk was so good.
Yeah, so this is a night where we just kind of celebrate all of our Impact team members.
Yep.
And we were giving them a little bit of a vision for what's coming this ministry year.
Yep.
And his talk, like I talked to him a couple of times before he came to just
Yeah.
kind of give him a little bit of direction as to what the night was going to be. But his talk was so
on
spot
point.
on.
It really was. It was so good.
Yeah.
And then we hung out afterwards, and that was super fun
Mm-hmm.
too. Had Sweet Frog here, had fire pits going, games set
Mm-hmm.
up, food everywhere. Everyone seemed to have a great time.
Yeah.
People hung out for quite a while. Yeah, it was really fun. Had a great time.
Yeah, it was really good.
I was bummed to miss it.
I know. We were disappointed that you weren't there.
Thanks, guys.
Meg did a good
Just
job.
wanted to hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Megan and Mike did a great job
Yeah.
leading. And then on Saturday, the B group leaders for this year got to enjoy going to the Tides baseball game together,
Oh, fun.
and that was a really fun night.
Is it still
a good
regular
turnout.
season? Or was because they made the playoffs, I think.
You're asking the wrong chick.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I don't know.
I just thought you were there.
Yeah.
No, I mean I was there. I was hardly paying attention.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I wanted to try to go to that, but the weekend was just
I
very
know it
full.
was very full.
Yeah.
And you had to preach.
Yeah, and I had the funeral on Saturday morning,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was just there was a lot.
You
going
were
on.
putting into practice your message from the week prior,
Trying to,
trying to say no to some things.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to do it. But then yesterday was an awesome day.
it was.
We're going to talk about the message in a second, but we had amazing baptism celebration.
It was so good.
I could not keep myself together.
No, you were a mess.
Oh my gosh. And then I
But-
heard
Crying?
By the time you were
Yes.
done, everyone in the room was a mess. It was such a good testimony that was
oh
being
my
read.
gosh. And unfortunately, there was another person who was supposed to come that I was supposed to read that testimony first, and she just couldn't make it yesterday. It's a good thing because I would I would have had to be like, someone else has to come read
Yeah.
this because it's
Yeah,
So
it was
good.
so great, and to hear just a couple things. I mean, one is just hearing how God has used our next gen ministry to impact people's lives so dramatically. I mean, it was just remarkable. And then the community, the group of people who
Oh
were
my gosh.
cheering her on for
The number of students that were there that were just losing it.
That's awesome.
it was
so great.
It was so great. I loved it so much.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done baptisms like many different ways throughout the years, but I really like how we're doing it right now.
I love
Just
it too.
Hearing the stories, it's just really good.
Yeah,
Yep.
so good.
Yeah.
So great. All right, guys. So we have our, we're continuing our Bible reading challenge.
We are.
Is there anything this last week or even today that has stood out to you in what we're reading? We're now into 2 Corinthians.
There was something today, but before I get to today, because I did see something in the reading today that I was like, "Ooh,
Okay.
that's worth saying." But last week we wrapped up 1 Corinthians. Maybe this was over the weekend.
Sunday, yeah, we're still.
Yeah, I think
more.
this might have been the reading from Friday. It was 1
Yeah.
Corinthians 16, verse 9. And the verse says, Paul writes, he says, there's a he was talking about why he was delayed coming to them. He was trying to make his way back to them.
Yep.
And he says that he's going to be delayed because where he is, there's a wide open door for a great work here, although many oppose me. And it just, that just kind of really just caught my attention. Like opposition and wide open doors can coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you get focused on, I do anyway, I get focused on opposition and lose sight of the wide open door. And I just, as I was reading that, I was thinking, man, like anytime, in fact, it's almost guaranteed that if there is a wide open door, there will be opposition because there's a spiritual enemy who's trying to impede progress. So, just thinking about that verse just kind of caught my attention and started thinking like even not just for churches, not just for church leaders, but for anyone. Like if you sense God is doing something in you and there's this, this great work that he's doing, don't be surprised if there isn't some opposition. And the opposition doesn't mean, it could very well mean that this is the greatest moment that God has for you. I just thought that was just, just really loved that.
Interesting to think about too, in contrast to, I'm not going to know the passage that this is in. I think it's actually mentioned in more than one of the Gospels, but when Jesus is telling the disciples to not stay in a village that has, he tells them to move on, don't stay here trying to
shake the
dust off your feet and get to the next place. So I think that just is so important to think about how much we have to be just following the Holy Spirit's lead in that. Like clearly Paul was like, I feel the opposition of this, but I feel like the Lord's calling me to stay here. Where Jesus in that example with the disciples is saying yeah, but when it's done, and you do have to move on. There's more people to reach in other places. So that's really good. Did you remember what was for today?
I do, but I'm going to use it in response to one of the questions that you have a little bit
nice.
later.
Little transition.
Interesting. I love it.
Mine wasn't specifically from a verse, but I thought this is cool. I know most of us have our Bible that you can read and it's hold. But I've been noticing when I'm reading with my phone, it's kind of cool. I've highlighted things throughout the years.
Oh, yeah.
Saved to my YouVersion and going back and it's I wonder what was... I don't have notes next to them, which you could do in a written Bible. I know you can.
You can add notes.
But I don't always have the notes next to it. And I'm always like, man, I wonder what I was going through.
Oh, yeah.
But then you read it and you're like, oh, man, there must have been something good going on. But that's happened to me a couple of times over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Just in my app on the phone. So, yeah.
Yeah. In that verse, I did add a note to my.
Oh, good.
That's why I said that.
I wonder if that's from when we went through Corinthians.
It could have been.
In our church studies.
Yep.
That might have been where
could
that
have
was
been.
from. Yeah.
Message church.
Yep.
All right. Well, I have an email I need to share with you guys.
I
This is how it goes. Hi, MFM crew. Heather, when you introduce this segment, could you please give the biggest, what the what you've ever given? Thank you.
Was that the biggest?
I think.
They all run together.
Anyway, I want to reach back to last week's message for this question. My dad talked about the hindrance of busyness, particularly when it comes to our faith walk. My question is, does the potential hindrance necessarily make busyness a bad thing? For example, I am particularly busy right now at work and haven't been able to devote as much time to my family as I would like, though I am trying to still devote the same amount of time to my pursuit of God. Let's say I was balancing things better than I am, though. Is the hindrance of busyness still a bad thing? Thanks for your responses. Derek Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, Derek's in the middle of a pretty big project at work, and he's been just putting in crazy hours. And I asked him the other day how long this project is, and he was like, I'm super busy, but it's only for this, this little bit. I said, well, how long is the project? He said, 5 years. It's like, that's a long time. Yeah. I don't think he's anticipating the busyness to be that long. But
okay, I was going to
it's
say,
like your kid's going to be in kindergarten.
Derek's so optimistic. Like, I mean, it's 5 years, but it's fine.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Fine.
Yeah, it'll be good. So, I did mention in that message that you can be busy and unhurried.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to underscore. So if you're busy and you still have time for contemplating your walk with Jesus and you're still able to show the love of Christ to others, like you can be busy and do both of those things. And Derek's not only busy at work, he's also busy at home because he's got a 5-month-old. And 5-month-olds are very demanding.
Yes.
If you didn't know.
Yeah.
It slows down, though, doesn't
So
it,
are
Sam?
15-year-olds.
Yeah. And a lot of people who are in those kind of stages often feel a lot of guilt because they're unable to devote as much time to, like, the traditional things that you think of that mark spiritual growth or whatever, like the first 15, the reading of things, all that kind of stuff. So like a busy season at work or a busy season at home, oftentimes those things make people feel as if, oh, well, I have to give up on spiritual development and whatever. And I've talked to many a mom of toddlers and that kind of stuff who just feel guilty that they're not doing all the things that they need to be doing. John Ortberg in his book, The Life You've Always Wanted, which is one of my favorite books of all time, he talks about, like, if you're in one of those busy seasons, so this is just kind of a pro tip that I'm going to throw out there for Derek or anyone else who finds themselves in a really busy season. He just talks about looking for Jesus in the midst of the things that you are already doing. So, like, if you're a mom and you're, like, just overwhelmed by taking care of this baby, as you're changing a diaper, as you're putting the baby in the tub, you start thinking, like, have that be the moment where you reflect on how your Father cares for you. And that moment can become actually a spiritual reflection moment. And you're doing it, you're incorporating it into what you're already doing. And you're not setting the baby aside and just, plopping down on the couch and reading the Bible. Yeah. But it is speaking to your soul, and it's cultivating your awareness of who God is and his work in you. So if you don't have time for, the traditional sense of spiritual formation, doesn't mean you have to be defeated and give up on the idea of spiritual formation. You can find ways to incorporate spiritual thoughts, being mindful of his presence with you, regardless of what you're doing, is part of spiritual formation. And so, just a little tip.
Almost like what Pastor Jen's doing in our B groups with, like, community groups, like finding where you're already going to be. Yeah. Because you have to be there. Like, we know a lot of people have done, like, the baseball thing. They're out at baseball. They're like, we are so busy with this. But they start doing, like, little groups, like just some of those, like taking some moment because you're already there. Just so put Jesus in, Jesus in it, or find where Jesus is in it. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I love your example for parents too. Like, for us when our kids were growing up, I I just personally like to get up before everybody and have my first 15, and that's just what I like to do. In that season of life for us, Nate incorporated that time with our kids. And so he had devotions with our boys every morning before school. And they would just go through the Psalm and the Proverb of the day. I mean, they did that for years. He would do that with them. And I don't know that he got a whole lot of extra time, like just with himself and the Lord in that season of life. But like him doing that with our kids and even modeling that for them, I think that was a good way to do what you were saying, incorporating that into just the rhythm of life.
Yeah, that's challenging too. We've found a couple like Bible trivia, which is funny because we've talked about Bible quizzing on here. And I did not like Bible quizzing growing up.
So now you're doing it too.
But on YouTube, we found some like trivia and the kids love it.
Oh, fun.
But then like it gets like in the difficult ones and I was like, oh my gosh, who did? And I'm trying to answer it and they'll be like, oh, it's obviously C. And it's like wrong. I was like, and they're like, Dad, aren't you a pastor? And I'm like, well, barely. But I'd say that, just say it's challenging, but it's also really cool growth that happens in this season of life with that too.
For everybody.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's really good. All right. Well, yesterday, like I said, we continued our back to school series. And Jamie, you reminded some of us, although I think for most of us, you introduced us to a word that's really small, but it's packed with meaning. So can you just give us a refresher for those of us who have already listened to the message, or tell us about what VIM is?
Yeah, so VIM is a word. It's not a made-up word. It's a real word. And it has to do with... it conveys kind of vitality, life, flourishing, that kind of thing. And it served as an acronym for us yesterday. So V in VIM is vision, I is intention or decision, and M is means or methods. So I use decision, intention, I use kind of interchangeably throughout the day, and same with method and means. They're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah. It was such a good message. And before you kind of got into each of those letters that you in the acronym, you made a point to clarify that spiritual growth is not achievable through human effort.
Yeah.
So why is it so important to acknowledge that truth?
So that's where the verse from this morning came from. So it's 2 Corinthians chapter 3, starting in verse 18, and he's talking about Moses, how Moses had the veil over his face that protected people from the radiance of the glory of the Lord that was shining on his face, because he would meet with God in the tent of meeting. And so that he put this veil on. And so people didn't see the full glory of God because he had this veil on. And so Paul's using that to make this comparison of like people today who are not believers in Jesus, they're missing the full glory of who God is. And it's like they have a veil over their faces that's hiding the glory of God from them. And then he says at the end, he says, whenever someone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. For the Lord is spirit, and wherever the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So all of us who have had the veil removed can see and reflect the glory of the Lord, and the Lord, who is the Spirit, makes us more and more like him as we are changed into his glorious image. And so that verse kind of reinforces what I was trying to say. We do not transform ourselves into the image of Christ.
Right.
The Spirit of God transforms us into the image of Christ. And so it's partly important because if you lose sight of that reality, then spiritual formation becomes about me. It becomes about my performance, how well I'm doing. I can start playing comparison games with other people. Oh, look at me. I'm more spiritual than they are. I'm more holy than they are. I'm doing things better than they are. And it's all about me and my effort and my performance. And anytime spiritual development becomes about you, it's no longer really what it's supposed to be. It's about Christ himself. You start taking pride, and that's the opposite of spiritual maturity, which is humility. And we start losing our dependency on God for His goodness, His mercies, His grace, because, well, I can achieve it on my own. So, if we could do it on our own, we wouldn't need Him. And the whole point of spiritual maturity is learning to live in dependence upon Him. And so, yeah, it's just super important. If you start thinking that you are the one who is doing it, you can start looking down on others who are not there.
Yeah.
So would you say, because like when I first read that, it doesn't take human effort. Do you think you'd still use that word? Because like it takes us having to like create habits, right? To spend with Jesus, you know what I'm saying?
So
it's not like, I don't have to do any of those
no,
things.
for sure. Yeah. And I talked about that a little bit yesterday too. It's God is a God of order. He's a God of process. And so He cooperates. It's His work. It's 100% His work. But somehow in the mystery of what spiritual development is, He invites us into the process. So the Spirit is not going to work despite us. He's not going to beat us into submission of Christ. So if we're not cooperating with the Spirit, there will be no transformation.
Yeah.
And God does use I was trying to say, like when I was talking about VIM, like you can, if you just followed, I have a vision for what I want my life to be, and I make a decision, an intention that I'm going to go after it, and then I start doing the things, the methods, the means. You can't just like plop that in and out come Jesus on the other side of that, because it's the Spirit that's He's going to cooperate with us in those things. But yeah, you can't leave Him out of it.
It's that weird mystery.
It's that weird thing. Yeah.
Well,
That's good
this has been
clarification,
like such a practical series too, right? And like the week before, you mentioned how whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, putting the Pareto principle into place is something that will be beneficial for you.
For sure. I don't
And
even
it's
know if
kind of-
Pareto was a Christian.
Right.
So.
And it's kind of the same thing with VIM, right? Like there are
100%.
other facets of our lives that we could apply that we would see success in. It's this one that we really need the Lord's work to get to a place of what we might find successful.
Yeah, I would say anyone who pursues any change in their lives, you will be more successful doing that if you have VIM.
Yeah.
Like if you want to lose weight, if you have a vision for what my life can be like with less weight than I have right now, and I make a decision to go after it, and then you follow the methods, you're gonna do it. But if you only view losing weight as, oh man, I got to deprive myself of all these things, and you have no vision for how much better things will be, well, then you're never going to be successful because you don't have a vision for what that can be. Same with getting out of debt. Same with, I mean, you name it, VIM does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
That's
change.
awesome. So your language illustration was so relatable.
Yeah.
I loved that. And at the end of that piece of your message, you said that you must have vision and a vision must have you.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit more? Like when has vision had you? What has that looked like in your life?
Yeah. I mean, there's been, like, immediately what comes to mind is building campaigns.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of 3 of them, and or 4, I can't remember.
I think it's 4.
I think it is 4. Now that I say it out loud, so I've been a part of 4 of them, and they're all about casting vision for what we're hoping God will accomplish through this thing. And I reluctantly went into one of them I didn't go into. I just cleaned up at the end. But I reluctantly went into the other 3 of them because they're just a lot, but they're a lot of work, and it's just a lot. However,
It's true.
they
I can't
are.
think of a better way to describe
I mean, they are.
Just a lot.
There are a lot of. It requires so much energy. But the reason we did those is because of a vision that had us
Yeah.
as a
Oh,
church
that's
to
so
reach
good.
more people. And when the vision has you, and
You
you
have to
can
do it.
you have to do it. So you see what you have a vision for what God will do as we accomplish this thing. So we make a decision that we're going all in on it.
Yeah.
And then you have the method and the means, the commitments, the scaling back, the sacrificial giving, so that we can realize this vision. I mean, that's the whole point of those campaigns. So like I've had personal things, I think our time in France, that was a vision thing for our family. And that was another one. Like it required everything in our lives to be all in on that thing.
Yeah.
Like it was a decision that you made. And that's like the intent thing. Lots of people make decisions that they don't follow through on. And the intent that we're talking about in VIM is not just, oh yeah, I think I'll do that. It's like, I'm going to arrange my life to make this happen.
Yeah.
Like
it.
that's the decision. Like I am all in on this thing. So like when we went to France, I mean, it literally took, it took years and years for us to do it, but we were sold out as a family on this idea of we will be in another country telling people about Jesus, going to a community that doesn't have a church and being a part of establishing one or expanding the presence of one. I mean, that was the vision that drove that. And I mean, yeah, I think some people go through maybe large chunks of life without ever experiencing that. And it's a shame because so much good can come from it.
I think the vision, because I immediately jumped to that when I thought of the question, is like, yeah, the building campaigns, like you cast like such great vision. But I think the vision, if you had to put them in line, is the easiest part of that whole thing. Is like the vision for me, like even in personal things, is like, oh, I have a vision what that can be. Or that's a vision of where I feel like God's calling me to. But then you got to put the other two steps in. There are like the means behind it and how you had, and that's where like it's just a lot.
Yeah,
like that's where that comes in, right? I mean, vision is tough. I'm not saying that, but if you had to rank them, like for me in my life, I was thinking, like even wanting to play a musical instrument. It was like, yeah, I had a vision. I saw somebody doing it. It was like, that would be really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But now you got to put the time in. And then there was like calls that came around that and like where God was leading you to use this thing, this vision that he gave you. I like how that breaks down because there's a lot of personal goals, but then we also have our church goals that we put into that vision as well.
I think even like anyone who's a parent, like I think sometimes you settle into like, let's just get through this thing. Let's get our kids raised.
Yeah.
But like, do you have a vision for who your kid can be? Like, and how are you going to invest in your kids? Like, what's the vision you have for the kind of parent that you will be or the kind of kid that you will raise? And like, if you have a real vision for it, it'll help you to make better decisions around, how you're going about it. So,
For sure.
Yeah. I like what you were saying too, Sam, about like, for you, the vision piece is the easy piece, and then the other pieces feel like more daunting, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's so cool about like doing this thing and going after this in community, because there are other people who like just lack vision. Like they just don't, that's not something that's going to come to them naturally.
Yeah.
But when you like are presenting them with vision or helping them come up with vision, then they can like align all of the things that need
everybody
to be
has
done
their
to go
different
after
strengths
it.
within the process.
Yeah, so I think even like when you think about impact teams and B groups, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's one of the benefits of being involved in those things when it comes to our spiritual growth and development, because we can say like, guys, I really want to go after this, but I don't even know what that looks like right now. And or like I'm a very like logistics person. Like I can like knock something out if someone will just help me like figure out what my big vision is.
Yeah.
And those people can help you do that.
Yeah. Joe Sengel, I was thinking about him too. When he comes and speaks the financial learning experience, he always starts with, what would you do? Like what's the dream you have for your life? Like that's the whole thing is just get some vision for what this can be, because if you have it, then you're going to have the motivation to do the other stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's so good. Jamie, I loved your story of your brother John,
Yes.
who is also one of our faithful listeners.
He is.
So you told a story about when the two of you came to faith, and John, when he went back to school after summer camp, was like a Jesus freak. I mean, he was walking through the hallways with his big leather-bound Bible.
He was.
And you were trying to play it a little more subtle.
I definitely was.
So coming off of that piece, you were talking about the intention,
Yes.
right? With all of that, like John was very intentional
He
in how
was.
he was walking with the Lord in that season. And you said that without intention, there is intellectualism. And
Yeah.
I just thought that was so good because we talk a lot around here about the legalism piece, and you
Yeah.
kind of tied that a little bit more to vision and to method.
Yeah.
But with this piece, you were talking about intellectualism, and I'm just wondering how you've seen that mindset increase as we've had access to more and more information, that people are just kind of resting in their intellectualism.
Yeah, I would say it even, I mean, certainly there is, some impact of that. Everyone's an expert in everything, right, these days. But I think even like from the church years of I don't know what years exactly, certainly probably before my time, but certainly the 70s, 80s, like where the big discipleship push was like Christian education, and there were, churches building classroom after classroom after classroom so that people could be Christian educated on Sunday morning, with this big emphasis on no, know all the things, and thinking that information equated discipleship, which it really doesn't. And what it did is it formed a lot of
Know-it-alls that weren't doing it
know-it-all Christians who were intellectually like, oh yeah, I know that, I believe that, but they weren't actually doing any of it. And so it may have even been counterproductive, the big emphasis on that. And so, yeah, I think it's certainly true today. Like everyone's an expert, everyone knows everything. People can sit down and tell me how to do my job better than I can do my job. I love when that happens.
And if they can't, just go to YouTube. It'll tell you.
It'll tell you how to do it. Yeah. So you can be an expert in anything, but intellectualism isn't going to change the world. Just because you believe something doesn't change a thing. And that verse where James says, like you can't just hear, you can't just know, you have to actually do. And if you're not doing, then you don't even really believe what you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Dallas Willard thing. You don't believe when you believe when you act as if what you say you believe is true. And so just belief, just knowledge, it can actually, the Bible warns of it. It can produce pride, and it's not very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe counterproductive.
I think probably so. Yeah.
I'm really thankful that maybe we're shifting back in this season of church to not having to be intellectual. We can just be intentional, because that is definitely my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
No, I just think it's just being intentional about things instead of everything man, it's just relational, and that's what changes. That's what changes hearts. That's how Jesus works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I hate that we miss that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the piece that like really pushed into your next steps for this week. And the first one was being a part of an impact team. So can you talk to us about how being a part of an impact team does really help with our spiritual growth and development? Yeah.
So, I mean, an impact team, they're just volunteer teams that do everything that gets done around here. And, at its core, it's about serving other people. And it doesn't matter what the task is that is being done. You're doing it to help someone else, which is the definition of service. And Jesus said, when he came into this world, he said, I came to serve, not to be served. And so obviously, if we're going to be formed to become more like Jesus, we have to serve others. It has to be a part of our rhythm. And you can serve others doing all kinds of things. You can do it in the grocery, and you ought to. You can do it in the grocery store. You can do it at work. You can do it everywhere, and you should. But you should also incorporate a rhythm of serving into your spiritual family, and that's what the impact team thing is all about.
Yeah, and then the same thing with B groups. Like how, Sam, maybe you can talk to that point. Like, how do B groups help us with that whole spiritual formation.
Well, I was going to say,
being intentional about
even the
things.
first thing with the impact teams, like I think we have, like there are a ton of students that are serving. I was trying to think, wasn't Rhonda saying something? I can't remember what day it was.
Yeah,
It was
there's
like on a Sunday or something. It was like ridiculous how many students were serving. So I think that speaks to our families. Is like parents are pushing kids to serve, and that's super exciting. It's building in this excitement, even when they're in 5th grade, moving into 6th grade, and they can
they can start
not
serving.
just go to for real, but now they can start serving, and like they get to go after what their what their strengths are, what they're excited about. So that's super cool. But I mean, I don't know. I've spoken on B groups a lot, and I've said this. You guys have heard it, so I'm sorry that it's a repeat. But for us, like moving from out of state, 12, 13 years ago, yes, I had a job here, but like the B group and getting connected to a B group is really what kept us here. It wasn't Jamie's preaching. That was probably second. It wasn't like him being like a great boss. Like it was us connecting with people because we knew that there was going to be seasons of life where we just needed those relationships, but also we needed them for accountability, even though that's not what we were going into it for. We were just going in for the relationships, but it turned into so much more. So I just appreciate Jen's heart with that and how she leads these B groups because, man, that is just like it's life-changing. For especially people like, there's a lot of people moving into this area for military stuff like that. And we need that connection. So I met somebody at the gym yesterday that they were like, we're from Texas and we've only visited a couple churches and really haven't got plugged in. I was like, was Believers one of them yet? And they're like, no, we haven't visited. So I was like, man, come check us out because you might connect here and that would be incredible because you need that. So
What is interesting, going back to that show I was telling you about, Live to 100, is in every place that they've been, volunteering and being in community have been big aspects of what
Helps them
they
live
would
that long.
define as living that long.
I need to
So
start.
don't do it.
I need to start.
You don't want to live to
I need to
100.
start backing out of some of this
You gotta
stuff.
stop serving.
I'm about to live
and
forever.
drop
200.
drop your B group. So one of the other next steps this week and is every week is a memory verse. And we don't talk about this a lot.
Oh, you're not going to ask me to cite the verse from
No,
memory,
you don't
are
need to recite it. But what is it about Bible memory that is like so important? Why should we not just kind of dismiss that as like, oh, they're saying the memory verse again?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, there's a verse in Psalm, speaking of not being able to memorize the reference. But, I hide God's word in my heart so that I will not sin, so I won't sin against God. So part of having verses at the ready by being super familiar with them, maybe being able to paraphrase them even, memorize them, is you have these principles at the ready when you encounter something or when you meet someone else who's going through something. You can encourage them with something from God's word that says, hey, I know, you're going through this tough spot, but, there's this verse in Psalms that says that God is close to the brokenhearted and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed. So, look for God's presence in this space that you are in because he's here for you. Being able to offer that up to people, being able to remind yourself of certain things so that you don't wander into sin. How critical is that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the reference, it's the content of it.
Right. It's
like
the
people
principle
get
of
so
it.
locked into that, and I know you hear people sometimes are like, well, Matthew 13:12 says, like that's really cool that you can memorize things, but it's the content, it's the theme of why it is in your heart, and I just think that's super important too.
Yeah, I loved at our Let's Chat event a couple weeks ago, I was going over the rules of engagement for how we were going to handle the evening's conversation. And one of the people there just shouted out the memory verse that we had throughout the Polarizing series. And I was like, yes, this is yes, that's exactly it. That captures our rules of engagement. So it does. It just kind of helps us connect to something that we've been taught. Finally, one of your next steps was the decision to follow Jesus. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes on the podcast to address, like, that is a next step that we have every single week.
Every week.
And why is that? Because I've been to plenty of churches that is not the case.
Yeah.
They don't even address salvation step as a step to take after hearing a message. So not that you need to talk about that, but talk about why is it important to us to have that as a next step every week?
Yeah. So for me, it's important, and I know really good churches that don't have that as a next step on the weekly basis. But for me, I just feel very strongly that if someone has made a decision to attend church, or someone has worked up the courage to invite someone to come to church with them, like for me, it's almost contractual. I feel as if I owe it to the person who's inviting someone to at least give that person that they've invited an opportunity to hear and understand the gospel in such a way that they could respond by saying yes. And so, and every week it's someone's first time maybe hearing the gospel in a way that they understand. They may have heard it 100 times. I probably heard it 100 times before. I heard it in a way when Alan Miller talked to me about it in a way that for the first time in my life, it clicked. And that was the moment that I made a decision to follow Jesus. And so maybe something is happening in a service that for the first time someone hears it and they're like, oh, that's what it means.
The veil is removed.
Yeah, the veil is removed. And now I can see with some clarity the step that I'm supposed to take. And so, yeah, every week we provide that opportunity, even if the message itself is not like gospel centric in the sense of like it's explaining what Jesus came and what he did and the resurrection. And like, you can't do that every single week. But I mean, it's not outside of the Spirit's purview to convict someone in a moment, in a message that maybe is about how to use your time better, to realize that, maybe something that is being said here is being applied to that person's heart in a way that this is going to be the moment for them. And so, yeah, I'm just committed to having every single week, whoever is teaching here, that is something that we do.
I think it's a great reminder for us. Like, we followed Jesus for a long time, and you've kind of already said this, but like the idea, like we just sometimes become so routine with it. Like, oh yeah, someone accepted Christ. Like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
A little golf clap. It's like literally eternity just changed for someone, for somebody.
Right.
And I've just always appreciated that here, that there's always an opportunity for that.
Yeah, and last year, more than 100 people made decisions to follow Christ for the very first time. More than 50 of them went public with their faith through baptism. So,
and what you say, hell's less populated now.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's it right there.
Yep.
Well, that's a great transition to Big Day because Big Day is coming up on October 1st. And what makes it Big Day around here is that we encourage everyone to bring someone. And it's because we want everyone to hear the message of Jesus.
Yep.
So we can double in a day. We say that. Like if everyone literally brought someone, we would double in a day.
How amazing would that be?
That would be so awesome. So what is it about this year's Big Day? What are we kicking off? What are we doing with that?
So the series that we're starting is Joyride, and it's a study of the letter of Philippians, a letter that Paul wrote from prison. And the theme of the letter is joy, and I would say like the subtle theme is I can be joyful even when life is hard.
Yeah.
And I think everyone knows life can be hard, and not many people know how to be joyful even when it's hard. And so that's why this series is so relevant, because life is hard, and yet joy doesn't have to be elusive. And so I'm excited to talk about how do we find joy in the midst of difficulty, and I think it's super relevant to just about everybody. I mean, culturally, joy is being squished out of people.
Right.
So like how do we rediscover joy? And so I'm excited about it. And then maybe Sam, you can talk about
from a creative.
all the there's a lot of fun things that are going to be happening around it.
From a creative standpoint, we understand that just because we have an awesome series title, that doesn't always help with inviting people to church. We're completely okay with some gimmicks. So we're doing
I am way okay with
if
it.
that gets somebody to hear about Jesus, like we just said, it's amazing. So we're doing, because it's Joyride, we've got the theme of the car and the racing and all that stuff. So we're doing for adults, if you bring a guest, you and your guest, if they show up, they fill out a communication card, you're going to be entered into a $500 gas gift card, which is amazing. Tyler's working with some gas stations. So even if you don't win the big gas card,
It's very important to say.
you can also,
right?
you can also, at Guest Central, you can get a $5 gas card, which is awesome. Like, so everybody can at least walk away with something, throughout that series.
Every guest throughout that series will get a $5 gas card.
We're going a little old school. Next Gen is doing a kids soapbox derby. Which is amazing. I did that growing up. I had the red, white, and blue car. Didn't win. I tried to cheat, put a little bit more weight on the bottom, but we will be checking all that. I think Doug's really on it. Pastor Doug is. So each kid's going to get one of those on Sunday, the big day, so they can decorate it and they can set it all up. And then that'll be for Fall Fest. That's the end of the month. But so just be there for October 1st for the new series. Just a lot's going to be happening. It's really exciting.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But until then, that's all we've got time for today.
Nice.
And for now, we would love to have you share this episode on your social media feeds. And we'll see you Sunday as we wrap up back to school. No, we're not. Are we wrapping it up yet? No.
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks.
Yep.
Sorry, just
Wait,
kidding.
Are you sure? No, I think this will come out.
This is the
last
24th.
week.
Yeah, because it's
And then the following week
big
is
day.
October 1st.
Oh, yeah.
You were right.
Okay, I was right.
You were right.
I got nervous because I
We should
thought,
have just stuck with it.
Oh,
You would have been so
okay.
smart.
Yeah.
we'll see y'all on Sunday when we wrap up
There you
our
go.
Back to School series.
Perfect.
We'll see you on Canvas at 9 and 10:45, or you can watch on YouTube at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Thanks for being here, friends. Go and be love.
Go Browns.